Part 1. The Distress Call. The bridge of the Broken Arrow smelled like burnt plastic and recycled air. Captain Hyunwoo stood at the command station, his one good eye scanning the sensor displays. His left eye socket was covered by a worn metal patch, a souvenir from the reactor breach 3 years ago. The ship groaned around him, metal plates shifting as the old colony vessel drifted through the outer rim of known space. "Contact on long-range scanners," called out Dae-hyun from the engineering station. The man was thin, his fingers stained with grease and chemical burns. He tapped the cracked screen in front of him. "Something big, really big." Hyunwoo moved closer, his boots magnetic against the deck plating. The gravity generators only worked at 60% capacity these days. Everything on the Broken Arrow worked at partial capacity. That was life in the wastes. "You may do with what you had or you died. How big?" Hyunwoo asked. "Energy signature is off the charts," Dae-hyun said, "but it's not moving. Just sitting there, broadcasting." "Broadcasting what?" "That's the weird part. It's a signal, but not in any language we know. Mathematical patterns, repeating sequences. Captain, I think it's a distress call." Hyunwoo felt his pulse quicken. The fleet had been scavenging out here for 6 months, finding nothing but dead rocks and empty stations. A distress call meant people. People meant supplies, technology, maybe even fuel. Or it meant trouble. In the wastes, those two things were often the same. "Wake up, Ji-won," Hyunwoo ordered. "Get her squadron ready. And call a fleet council. All ships." 30 minutes later, the command deck was crowded. The other ship captains appeared on flickering holographic displays, their faces tired and suspicious. They commanded vessels just like the Broken Arrow. Old, patched, barely holding together. The human fleet was 12 ships in total, carrying maybe 8,000 souls. All that remained after Earth died. "We picked up a signal," Hyunwoo began without preamble. "Dae-hyun, show them." The engineer played the transmission. Strange sounds filled the bridge, musical and alien. Numbers scrolled across screens. Patterns that looked almost like mathematics but weren't quite. Everyone stared in silence. "What is that?" asked Captain Soon-young from the Iron Hope, her voice crackling through the bad connection. "Aliens," Dae-hyun said simply. "Has to be. No human language uses these patterns." "Aliens don't exist," muttered Captain Taemin from the mining hauler Dust Runner. "We've been in space for 60 years. Never seen anything. We've been in our own corner of space," Hyunwoo said. "Out here things are different. Dae-hyun thinks he can translate it. Give us 12 hours. The council argued for another 20 minutes before agreeing to wait. Hyunwoo cut the connection and turned to his engineer. "Can you really translate it?" Dae-hyun grinned, his teeth stained yellow from too much coffee substitute. "Math is universal, Captain. Give me time." Those 12 hours felt like 12 days. Hyunwoo paced the bridge, drinking bitter recycled coffee while Dae-hyun worked. Ji-won arrived 4 hours in, her flight suit wrinkled from sleep. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and eyes that burned with barely controlled energy. "Heard we found something interesting," she said, dropping into the pilot station. "Maybe. Or maybe we found something that'll kill us. At least it'll be exciting." Ji-won smiled, but there was no humor in it. None of them had known peace. They'd been born in the resource wars, raised in the collapse, trained to fight for every scrap of survival. Excitement and danger were the only constants they knew. Dr. Hana arrived next, carrying her medical kit. She was older, maybe 40, with gray streaking her dark hair. Her hands were steady, her eyes kind but hard. She'd seen too much death to be soft anymore. "You should sleep, Captain," she said, checking his vitals with a handheld scanner. "Your blood pressure is terrible." "I'll sleep when we know what that signal says," Hana sighed but didn't argue. She'd learned years ago that Hyunwoo couldn't be moved once he made up his mind. Finally, Dae-hyun straightened from his console. His eyes were red from staring at screens. "Got it, most of it anyway." "Captain, you need to hear this." Hyunwoo moved to his side. "Play it." The alien sounds came again, but this time rough human words overlaid them. Dae-hyun's translation program worked in real time, turning mathematical patterns into language. "Collective under attack. 3 worlds. Population 12 billion. Enemy cannot be stopped. They adapt to all weapons. They consume everything. This is our final transmission. If anyone receives this message, we beg for help. Coordinates attached. We are the Calentine Collective. Please, anyone," the message repeated. Again and again, the same desperate plea broadcast into the void. The bridge was silent. G1 spoke first. 12 billion people. 3 worlds under attack, Hana whispered. An entire civilization dying. And they're asking for help, Daehyun added. But Captain, this signal has been broadcasting for 6 days. No one's answered. Hyunwoo felt something cold settle in his chest. He knew what that meant. Somewhere out there were other civilizations. Advanced ones, probably. They'd heard this signal. They knew about the Kalantine Collective and whatever was attacking them. And they'd done nothing. How far? He asked. Daehyun checked his calculations. 4 days at maximum FTL. We'd burned through half our fuel reserves. Call the council. Everyone needs to hear this. The second meeting was longer and angrier. The captains shouted at each other through the holographic displays, their voices overlapping. We can't afford to help them, Captain Taemin argued. We barely have enough fuel to survive the year. 12 billion people are dying, Captain Soon-young countered. We can't just ignore that. We've been ignored our entire lives, Taemin shot back. Earth burned and no one helped us. Why should we be different? Because we know what it feels like, Hyunwoo said quietly. The arguing stopped. Everyone turned to look at him. We know what it's like to send out a distress call and hear nothing back. We know what it's like to watch our world die while the universe stays silent. Is that really what we want to be? The people who hear someone screaming and just keep walking? Pretty words don't fuel ships, Taemin said. We have families to feed. Children to protect, I know. But think about this. These Kalantines have been broadcasting for 6 days. They have FTL communication technology. They have 3 planets. They're advanced, probably more advanced than us. If we help them, maybe they help us back. Maybe we finally get the resources we need to stop just surviving and start rebuilding. The silence stretched. Finally, Captain Soon-young spoke. We vote. All in favor of responding to the signal? 8 ships voted yes. 4 voted no. It was enough. We leave in 6 hours, Hyunwoo said. Bring every weapon we have. Daehyun, plot the course. Ji-won, get your squadron ready. Everyone else prepare for combat. We don't know what we're jumping into. As the council disconnected, Hana approached him. You think we can actually help them? Against an enemy that even they can't beat? Hyunwoo stared at the star map, at the coordinates where 12 billion people waited to die. Probably not. But we have to try. Because if we don't, what's the point of surviving? 4 days later, the human fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Kalantine system. What they saw made Hyunwoo's blood run cold. 3 beautiful planets orbited a binary star, their surfaces visible even from this distance, but surrounding them were ships, massive geometric vessels of black metal and pulsing red lights. And around those alien ships, debris fields sparkled in the starlight, the wreckage of thousands of destroyed vessels. Dear God, Ji-won whispered. Contact incoming, Daehyun said. Captain, someone's hailing us. The screen flickered to life. The being that appeared was like nothing Hyunwoo had ever seen. Crystalline, insectoid, beautiful, and terrible at once. It spoke in that same musical language they'd heard in the distress call. Translation coming through, Daehyun said. Words appeared on screen, unknown vessels. This is Observer Velthar of the Kalantine Collective. You came. Someone actually came. Hyunwoo straightened despite the fear crawling up his spine. This is Captain Hyunwoo of Earth Fleet. We heard your distress call. We're here to help. There was a long pause. Then Earth? We have no records of Earth. Who are you? We're the people nobody else wanted to save, Hyunwoo said. Now tell us how to kill these bastards. Part 2. First Contact Observer. Velthar stared at the display screen in disbelief. The 12 vessels that had just arrived were unlike anything in the Kalantine database. They looked broken. Hulls were covered in patches, welded metal plates, and what appeared to be salvage parts from completely different ship types. One vessel had 3 different engine configurations attached to its rear. Another's hull was painted in faded colors that didn't match. These are warships? Asked High Commander Thexol, his crystalline form reflecting the red warning lights of the command center. They look like scrap metal held together by hope. They answered our call, Velthar said quietly. No one else did. The human captain appeared on their communication screen. He was missing an eye, covered by crude metal. His face was scarred, his uniform patched and worn. Behind him, his bridge looked barely functional. Exposed wiring ran along the walls. Screens flickered and sparked. We need you to fall back to the outer defense perimeter, Thexol commanded. his translator converting his words to the human language. The Marauder Hive has 12 capital ships in the inner system. They adapt to any weapon we use. Our fleet has been reduced by 70% in 6 days. Show us what you've tried, the human captain said. For the next hour, Thexol transmitted battle data. The Calentine Collective had fought with precision and honor. Their tactics were textbook perfect, their formations flawless. They used energy weapons that could vaporize asteroids, missiles guided by quantum computers, shields that could deflect any known projectile. The Hive adapted to everything. After 3 shots, their shields absorbed energy weapons. After 5 missiles, their point defense systems learned the flight patterns. The Hive fought like a learning computer, growing stronger with every engagement. You fight like you're in a training simulation, Captain Hyunwoo said finally. Everything by the book. Perfect formations. Textbook tactics. That is how warfare is conducted, Thexol replied, insulted. With discipline and honor. That's how you lose, the human said. The Hive is a computer. It learns patterns. You keep giving it patterns to learn. What do you suggest? Give me 12 hours to observe. We'll figure something out. Thexol wanted to argue, but Velthar stopped him. Let them watch. We're dying anyway. What harm can it do? The human fleet moved to the outer system, staying out of the battle zone. Velthar watched their ships carefully. They didn't maintain formation. Instead, they drifted in what looked like random patterns, their sensors focused on the ongoing battle. A squadron of small craft launched from one of the human vessels. Velthar counted 6 fighters, each one different from the others. They looked as patched and broken as the larger ships. Human fighter squadron approaching sensor range. A Calentine tactical officer reported. Should we warn them back? No, Velthar said. Let's see what they do. The human fighters moved fast, faster than Calentine pilots would dare. They flew in erratic patterns, sometimes so close together that collision seemed inevitable. The lead craft was piloted by someone named G1, according to the identification signal. Wraith 1 to Wraith Squadron. Her voice came through on open channels. Remember, we're just looking. Don't engage unless they shoot first. Wraith 3 here. What if they do shoot first? Then shoot back and run like hell. The casual tone shocked Velthar. Calentine pilots maintained strict communication protocols. These humans sounded like they were discussing lunch, not flying into a war zone. The fighters penetrated deep into the battle area, weaving between Hive ships and Calentine defenders. A Hive destroyer fired on them. The human fighters scattered like frightened birds, but it wasn't panic. It was coordinated chaos. They split in 6 different directions, forcing the Hive weapons to choose targets. They're analyzing weak points in Hive targeting systems, Thexol said with surprise. But their flight pattern is completely random. Maybe that's the point, Velthar suggested. One fighter got too close to a Hive cruiser. Weapons locked onto it. Velthar watched the pilot, this G1, spin her craft in a barrel roll that shouldn't have been possible at that speed. The Hive weapons fired where she should have been, hitting empty space. She accelerated straight down relative to the Hive ship, passing within meters of its hull. Insane, breathed a Calentine tactical officer. Wraith 1 to fleet, G1 reported, her voice slightly strained. Got what we needed. Returning home. All 6 fighters made it back, though one was trailing coolant and another had burn marks along its wing. Velthar requested permission to speak with the human fleet and was granted access. The meeting took place via hologram. Velthar's crystalline form appeared on the human bridge, while the human captain and his officers appeared in the Calentine command center. Your pilot is reckless, Thexol said immediately. My pilot is alive, Captain Hyunwoo replied, and she got the data we needed. G1, report. The young pilot stepped forward. She looked tired but excited. The Hive ships have blind spots in their sensor coverage, small gaps where the processing power is focused elsewhere. They're also slow to react to non-threatening behavior. When I flew past that cruiser, it didn't fire because I wasn't acting aggressive. You flew within meters of a Hive vessel, Thexol said. That is beyond reckless. That is suicidal. That's Tuesday for us, Ji-won said with a shrug. Another human stepped forward, the one called Dae-hyun. He looked even more tired than the pilot, but his eyes were sharp. We've been analyzing your battle data. The Hive learns from you because you're predictable. Every formation has a counter-formation. Every tactic has a counter-tactic. But they're designed to fight advanced civilizations. And you are not advanced? Thexol asked, his tone making it clear what he thought of their ships. "We're survivors," Captain Hyunwoo said. "We don't fight fair. We don't fight clean. We fight to win using whatever works. The Hive is expecting you to use advanced tactics. What if we use primitive ones? Explain. Kamikaze runs. False retreats. Decoys made from debris. Minefields using our own damaged ships as bombs. Electromagnetic pulses that fry systems instead of destroying them. We fly like we're drunk, shoot like we're desperate, and run away before they can adapt." "This is barbarism," Thexal said, his form flickering with what Velthar recognized as disgust. "We do not fight like animals." "Then you'll die like civilized people," Hyunwoo said without emotion. "Which is still dead." "Your choice." The silence stretched. Finally, Velthar spoke. "What do you need from us?" "Access to your weapon systems, schematics for your ships, and permission to operate independently. We can't save your entire fleet, but we can hurt the Hive. Maybe enough to make them reconsider this attack." Thexal looked ready to refuse, but Velthar overruled him. "You have our cooperation. Observer protocol gives me authority in first contact situations. I'm authorizing full tactical cooperation." "You're making a mistake," Thexal said. "We've been making mistakes for 6 days," Velthar replied. "Perhaps it's time to try something different." Over the next 8 hours, human engineers swarmed over Kalantine vessels, adapting systems and weapons. Daehyun moved through the ships like he was shopping, pointing at technology and asking if he could borrow it. The Kalantine engineers were horrified at how he combined their advanced systems with crude human modifications. Dr. Hana set up a medical station on one of the Kalantine hospital ships. She worked alongside Kalantine doctors treating the wounded. Her methods were primitive compared to Kalantine medical technology, but she had something they lacked: experience treating catastrophic injuries with minimal resources. "Your medicine is crude," observed a Kalantine physician named Kirvesh. "But it works," Hana replied, stitching up a wound on a Kalantine soldier with actual thread because the tissue regenerator was offline. "Sometimes the old ways work when the new ways fail." She saved 3 soldiers that day who would have died waiting for proper equipment. Kirvesh watched in amazement. Meanwhile, Velthar spent time on the human flagship. The Broken Arrow was a disaster by Kalantine standards. Nothing was new. Everything was repaired or repurposed. The crew wore mismatched uniforms. The food was terrible. But there was something else. Something Velthar couldn't quite identify. "You asked us who we are," Captain Hyunwoo said, showing Velthar old files. Images appeared. A blue-green planet. Beautiful cities. Billions of people. This was Earth, our home. 57 years ago, we used up all our resources fighting each other. The planet died. We sent out distress calls for 15 years. No one answered. "I'm sorry," Velthar said. "Don't be. It made us strong. We learned to survive with nothing. To fight when there's no hope. To keep going when everyone else gives up. That's what we're offering you. Not honor. Not civilization. Just survival." Velthar looked at this scarred, one-eyed human and understood. They weren't heroes. They were desperate people who'd learned to turn desperation into strength. "The Hive is moving," a Kalantine officer reported suddenly. 3 capital ships breaking formation. "They're heading for the inner colonies." Captain Hyunwoo smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Perfect. Time to show you how Earth fights. Jiwon, launch all fighters. Daehyun, arm the surprise we built. Everyone else, prepare for combat." "What surprise?" Velthar asked. "You'll see. Just stay back and watch. This is going to get messy." Part 3. Wastelander Tactics. The 3 Hive capital ships moved through space like geometric nightmares. Each one was the size of a small moon, black metal covered in red lights that pulsed like heartbeats. They'd destroyed 40 Kalantine vessels in the last hour without taking significant damage. Now they were heading toward Kalantine Prime, the homeworld where 6 billion people waited. "Human fleet, fall back," High Commander Thexal ordered. "Those are capital-class vessels. Your ships won't survive contact." "Wasn't planning on contact," Captain Hyunwoo replied. "We're planning on impact." Big difference. The 12 human ships split into 3 groups, each targeting one Hive capital ship. They moved in patterns that made no tactical sense to the Kalantine observers. Ships would accelerate, then suddenly brake. They'd turn toward the enemy, then veer away. Their formation looked drunk. "What are they doing?" Thexal demanded. "Something unpredictable," Velthar said, watching carefully. Ji-Wan led her fighter squadron straight at the nearest hive ship. Behind her flew 15 more fighters, a mix of human and Kalantine craft. The human pilots had spent 6 hours teaching Kalantine pilots their techniques, which mostly involved ignoring safety regulations and common sense. Wraith Squadron. Remember the plan? Ji-Wan said over the comm. We're mosquitoes. Annoying, fast, and really hard to swat. Wraith 5 here. What if they do swat us? Then you die doing something cool. Now shut up and fly. The fighters split into 3 groups of 6. They approached the hive ship from different angles, flying in those same erratic patterns. The hive weapons locked on, fired. Plasma bolts filled space, and the fighters dodged. It wasn't graceful like Kalantine flying. It was desperate, wild, and somehow effective. Fighters spun, dove, climbed in patterns that seemed random but kept them just ahead of the targeting computers. 2 fighters collided, their shields sparking. But both recovered and kept flying. They're insane, a Kalantine tactical officer said. They're alive, Velthar corrected. While the fighters drew attention, the main human fleet closed in. The broken arrow led the way, its patched hull reflecting weapon fire. It flew straight at the hive capital ship, not even trying to dodge. They're going to ram it, Thexel said in horror. They're actually going to ram it. At the last second, the broken arrow turned hard. Its engines screamed, pushed beyond safe limits. The ship passed within 100 meters of the hive vessel's hull, close enough that the 2 shields sparked against each other. And then it released its cargo. A Kalantine cargo hauler, one of the ships destroyed earlier in the battle. Daehyun had spent 6 hours gutting it, removing everything except the reactor and a proximity trigger. Now it drifted toward the hive ship, looking like debris. The hive ship ignored it. Debris wasn't a threat. By the time its sensors registered the active reactor, it was too late. The hauler detonated and the explosion was massive. Not nuclear, but electromagnetic. A pulse of energy that fried every sensor on that side of the hive vessel. Now, Hyunwoo ordered. The human and Kalantine fleet opened fire while the hive ship was blind. Energy weapons struck undefended hull. Missiles slammed into weapon ports. For 30 seconds, the humans threw everything they had at one target. The hive ship's shields came back online, already adapting, but 30 seconds of focused fire had done damage, real damage. The ship was wounded. Fall back, Hyunwoo ordered. Don't give them time to learn. The human fleet scattered like leaves in wind. No formation, no order. Just 12 ships flying in 12 different directions. The hive weapons tried to track them and failed. There was no pattern to predict. The second hive capital ship moved to intercept, but another human vessel was waiting. The Iron Hope, Captain Soon-Young's ship, had been drifting with its power signature reduced to almost nothing. The hive had dismissed it as disabled. Now it powered up and fired. Not energy weapons, not missiles. It launched chunks of metal, raw ore from the mining operations accelerated to incredible speed by Kalantine mass drivers. Crude projectiles that the hive shields were designed to ignore because what advanced civilization used kinetic weapons? The ore chunks punched through shields and tore into the hive hull. Not enough to destroy the ship, but enough to hurt it, to make it angry. All ships, Captain Soon-Young said calmly. I think I made them mad. Running away now. The hive ship pursued, its weapons charging. It had identified a target, calculated firing solutions, prepared to destroy this impudent vessel. And that's when the Iron Hope flew straight into a debris field. The debris wasn't random. Daehyun had spent 3 hours positioning dead satellites, broken ship parts, and chunks of destroyed vessels. Each piece had been rigged with a small explosive charge. Not enough to damage a capital ship, but enough to create a chain reaction. The Iron Hope passed through safely, knowing exactly where the traps were. The hive ship followed and the debris field exploded. Hundreds of small blasts turned the area into a metal storm. The hive shields held, but the sensors went haywire trying to track everything at once. 3 human ships emerged from hiding and opened fire. Again, they focused on one target, hitting it with everything before retreating. The hive adapted quickly, but by then the humans were gone. This is not warfare, Thexel said, watching in disbelief. This is chaos. This is survival, Velthar replied. Watch and learn. The third hive capital ship had learned from its companions. It maintained distance, used longer-range weapons, and refused to pursue individual targets. It was adapting to human tactics, becoming more cautious. Daehyun, Captain Hyunwoo said. Time for the big one. On it, Captain. This is either going to be brilliant or kill us all. Preferably brilliant. I'll do my best. The broken arrow turned toward the third hive ship. Its reactor started cycling up, power levels climbing into dangerous territory. Alarms blared across the bridge. The ship was pushing itself beyond design limits, beyond safety margins, beyond sanity. "Captain," Dr. Hana said from her station, "the reactor is critical. If you keep this up, we'll have a breach." "I know. That's the plan." The broken arrow accelerated, moving faster than a ship that size should. It wasn't trying to ram the hive vessel. It was trying to get close. Very close, the hive ship opened fire with everything. Plasma bolts, missiles, energy beams. The broken arrow's shields flared, failed, collapsed. Weapons fire struck the hull. Armor plating burned away. Sections of the ship vented atmosphere. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7, someone reported. Casualties coming in. Reactor at 200% capacity. "Keep going," Hyunwoo ordered. "Captain, we're dying," Hana said. "Not yet, we're not." The broken arrow passed within 50 meters of the hive capital ship, so close that the two vessels almost touched. And then Daehyun hit the override. The reactor didn't explode. Instead, it vented. All that built-up energy, all that radiation released in one massive pulse. It washed over the hive ship like a wave. Sensors died. Shields flickered. Systems went offline across the entire vessel. The broken arrow tumbled away. Its reactor dead, half its systems burned out, but its crew alive. Barely. "All ships," Hyunwoo said, his voice strained. "Target the third capital ship. It's blind. Hit it now." The entire human fleet, every Calantine vessel that could still fight, opened fire on the defenseless hive ship. They poured everything into it. Weapons meant for single shots were fired until they overheated. Missiles that should have been saved for emergencies were launched in volleys. The hive ship's armor held. Its shields started coming back online, but not fast enough. The combined fire found weak points, exploited damage, and punched through. Internal explosions rippled across the massive vessel. Secondary detonations followed. The ship didn't explode dramatically. It just stopped working. Systems failed. Weapons went silent. It drifted dead in space. "One down," Ji-won said. "Two damaged." Not bad for trash collectors. But the victory had cost them. The broken arrow was crippled. 2 other human ships were gone, destroyed in the fighting. 4 more were heavily damaged. Calantine losses were even worse. Another 12 ships lost. "Human fleet, this is High Commander Thexal. Your tactics are effective but unsustainable. You cannot win a battle of attrition." "We're not trying to win," Hyunwoo said, slumped in his command chair. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. "We're trying to make them reconsider." Daehyun, analysis. The engineer worked his console with shaking hands. "The 2 surviving capital ships are pulling back. They're not retreating, but they're not advancing either. I think we confused them. Good, that's all we needed. Velthar, get your fleet reorganized. When they come back, they'll be ready for our tricks. We need new ones." Velthar looked at the tactical display. 3 human ships destroyed. 4 crippled. The survivors were all damaged. And yet they'd stopped a hive advance that had been unstoppable for 6 days. "How?" Velthar asked. "How did you do this?" "We fought like we had nothing to lose," Hyunwoo said. "Because we don't. Earth is dead. Our fleet is all we have. We risk everything because everything is already lost. You can't threaten someone who's already accepted death. But you haven't accepted it. You're still fighting. That's the trick. We accept that we might die. We don't accept that we will die. There's a difference." Dr. Hana was moving through the ship now. Part 4. The Cost of Survival. The medical bay of the Broken Arrow smelled like blood and burned circuits. Dr. Hana moved between patients, her face gray with exhaustion. She'd been operating for 16 hours straight. The wounded kept coming. "Doctor, we need you in Section 3, a medic called out. "Captain's been injured." Hana found Hyunwoo sitting on a cargo crate holding his side. Blood seeped between his fingers. A piece of shrapnel had caught him during the reactor breach, and he'd been walking around with it for hours. "You stubborn fool," Hana said, pulling his hand away to examine the wound. "This needed treatment 6 hours ago." "I was busy," Hyunwoo said through gritted teeth. "You're always busy. That's how you'll die, working yourself to death while ignoring the wounds." She prepared her tools. No anesthetic left. He'd have to endure it. "This is going to hurt." Everything hurts these days. She worked in silence, removing the shrapnel and closing the wound with actual stitches because the medical synthesizer had burned out. Hyunwoo didn't make a sound, though his jaw was clenched so tight she thought his teeth might break. "Done," she finally said. "Rest for at least 12 hours or I'll sedate you myself." "Can't. The hive could attack at any moment, then die standing up like an idiot. See if I care." But her hands were gentle as she bandaged the wound. "We lost 42 people today, Captain. 42. That's almost 1% of our entire population. How long can we keep doing this?" Hyunwoo looked at her, his one eye tired. "As long as we have to." Across the system, on the Calentine flagship, the mood was different. The command center was filled with officers arguing. High Commander Thexol stood at the center, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. "The humans saved us today, but at what cost?" he demanded. "Their tactics are brutal, wasteful, and without honor. 3 of their ships were destroyed because they threw themselves at the enemy like missiles." 3 ships that destroyed a hive capital vessel, Velthar countered. "A vessel that had destroyed 40 of ours. I would call that effective. It's barbaric. They fight like animals, not civilized beings. They fight like survivors. There's a difference." Another officer spoke up, a tactical specialist named Korthen. "The humans concern me for a different reason. They showed us how to defeat the hive, yes, but they also showed the hive how humans fight. Next time the hive will be prepared for chaos tactics." "Then we'll need to be even more chaotic," Velthar said. "That's the entire point. The hive learns patterns. We must refuse to have patterns." "Can we even do that?" Korthen asked. "Our entire military training is based on discipline, order, and precision. The humans ask us to abandon everything we know about warfare." Thexol was quiet for a moment. "Request a meeting with the human command staff. All of them. We need to understand these people better." The meeting took place on a neutral Calentine station that had somehow survived the fighting. The humans arrived in a shuttle that looked like it had been built from 3 different ships. Captain Hyunwoo walked with a slight limp now, his injury obvious despite Hana's work. Ji-won looked half dead from exhaustion. Dae-hyun had burns on his hands from working on overloaded systems. They sat across from the Calentine command staff in a conference room that was too clean, too perfect. The contrast was striking. Crystalline beings that looked like living art facing humans that looked like refugees. "Your tactics worked," Thexol began. "I will not dispute that. But they are unsustainable. You lost 3 ships. 3 ships that can never be replaced. Your fleet is finite. Every loss brings you closer to extinction." "We've been close to extinction for 50 years, Hyunwoo said. "This is nothing new. How can you be so casual about it?" "Because panic doesn't help. We learned that on Earth. When the resource wars started, people panicked. They hoarded. They killed each other. The ones who survived were the ones who accepted reality and adapted to it." Ji-won leaned forward. "Let me explain it simply. We're already dead. Every human in our fleet is living on borrowed time. Earth is gone. We have no home, no backup, no reinforcements. So when we fight with nothing to lose. You Calentines have 3 beautiful planets full of billions of people. You have something to protect. That makes you cautious." "Caution keeps us alive," Korthen said. "Caution gets you killed slowly," Ji-won replied. "Recklessness gets you killed fast. We choose fast. At least it's on our terms." Velthar spoke quietly. "Is that truly how you see yourselves? As already dead?" Hyunwoo was quiet for a long moment. "You wanted to understand us. Here's the truth. When Earth died, we sent out distress calls for 15 years. We begged for help. We offered everything we had. And the universe stayed silent. We learned that no one was coming to save us. So we saved ourselves. Every ship we have was built from scraps. Every system we use was salvaged or stolen or improvised. We exist because we refused to accept that we were supposed to die." "Then why did you come here?" Thexol asked. "Why answer our distress call when no one answered yours?" "Because we know what it feels like," Hana said, speaking for the first time. "We know what it's like to scream into the void and hear nothing back. We know what it's like to watch people die while waiting for help that never comes. And we decided that no one else should experience that, not if we could prevent it." The silence stretched. Finally, a junior Calentine officer spoke. "But you're asking us to fight like you, to abandon our principles, to become like us?" Ji-won asked with a bitter smile. "Trust me, you don't want to be like us, but you want to survive. Then you need to learn what we learned. Honor doesn't stop bullets. Principles don't save lives. Only victory does. And victory requires doing whatever works, no matter how ugly it is." "There must be limits," Thexol insisted. Lines we don't cross. There are, Hyunwoo said. We don't target civilians. We don't torture prisoners. We don't use bioweapons. But beyond that, everything is on the table. Because the hive doesn't have limits, they'll consume your entire civilization without a second thought. You can't beat them by being better than them morally. You beat them by being more adaptable. Daehyun pulled up a holographic display. Look at this. Hive attack patterns from the last 3 days. See how they adapt? After you use an energy weapon 5 times, they adjust their shields. After you launch missiles from the same angle 3 times, they pre-position defenses. They learn fast. Too fast. So how do we fight something that learns from everything we do? Korthan asked. You never do the same thing twice. You mix high technology with primitive tactics. You use advanced sensors to target, but simple kinetic weapons to hit. You fly with computer precision, then suddenly switch to manual control and make mistakes that are actually deliberate. You make them think they understand you, then do something completely different. That's exhausting, a Kalantine tactical officer said. War is exhausting, Hana replied. I've treated 300 wounded in the last day. I've watched people die on my operating table because I didn't have the right equipment or the right medicine. I've held the hand of a 19-year-old pilot while she bled out, telling her she was brave, that she mattered, knowing she'd be dead in minutes. That's exhausting. Changing your tactics is just inconvenient. The meeting went on for 3 more hours. The humans explained their methods, their thinking, their willingness to sacrifice anything for victory. The Kalantines struggled to understand how a species could function this way. Finally, Velthar asked the question that had been bothering them. What do you want from us? You came here to help, yes, but you must want something in return. Hyunwoo nodded. We want an alliance. When this is over, if we survive, we want access to your technology, your medicine, your manufacturing. We want help rebuilding. Not charity. We'll trade for it. We have things you need. What could you possibly have that we need? Thexal asked. Experience. We know how to survive with nothing. How to make broken things work. How to fight enemies that should be unbeatable. That's valuable knowledge. Plus, our engineers are really good at improvising. Your technology is amazing, but it's fragile. It needs perfect conditions. Ours works in any conditions because it was built for the worst conditions. You're offering us a trade, Velthar said slowly. Your knowledge for our resources. Exactly. We help each other. That's how alliances work. Thexal stood, his form straightening. I need time to consider this. But I will say one thing. You humans are unlike any species I've encountered. You're crude, reckless, and at times barbaric. But you're also brave, adaptable, and surprisingly principled in your own way. I'm not sure if I respect you or fear you. Both is fine, Ji-won said with a tired smile. We get that a lot. As the humans prepared to leave, Velthar approached Hyunwoo privately. May I ask you something personal? Go ahead. When you received our distress call, did you hesitate? Even for a moment? Did you consider ignoring it? Hyunwoo was quiet. Yes, for about 5 seconds. Then I remembered what it felt like to be the one calling for help. And I knew I couldn't do that to someone else. Even if it meant risking everything we had. That took courage. No. Courage is being afraid and doing it anyway. We're beyond fear. We're just tired of running and decided to stand and fight for something other than ourselves for once. Back on the Broken Arrow, the crew worked to repair the damage. Part 5. The Wastelander Doctrine. 6 months had passed since the humans first arrived. The war had consumed those months like fire-consuming paper. The Kalantine system was now a graveyard. Debris fields floated where once there had been stations. Burn marks scarred the surfaces of all 3 planets. But the planet still stood. The people still lived. The human fleet had been rebuilt, though calling it rebuilt was generous. The remaining 9 ships had been patched with Kalantine technology, creating vessels that were half human desperation and half alien precision. They were ugly, asymmetrical, and surprisingly effective. The Broken Arrow floated at the center of the defensive formation. Its hull was now covered in Kalantine armor plates welded over human steel. Mismatched weapons bristled from every surface. The reactor was a hybrid system that made Daehyun's old professors weep in their graves. But it worked better than either technology alone. Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge, his scarred face reflected in the tactical display. His missing eye had been replaced with a Kalantine optical implant that glowed faintly blue. He'd refused it at first, but Hana had insisted after he'd nearly flown into an asteroid because of his blind spot. Incoming transmission, the communications officer reported. It's the Hive, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. Put it through. The voice that came through wasn't mechanical. It was smooth, almost pleasant. The Hive had learned to communicate in ways that organic species understood. Human vessels, Calantine forces. This is the Hive Collective. We have analyzed your tactics. We have adapted to your chaos. We have brought sufficient force to end this conflict. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Resist and we will consume everything in this system, including your memories. Hyunwoo smiled, though there was no humor in it. This is Captain Hyunwoo of Earth Fleet. You want a response? Here it is. Go to hell. He cut the transmission. Around the bridge, his crew was silent. They knew what was coming. The sensor displays showed it clearly. The Hive had brought everything. 50 capital ships, 300 support vessels, countless fighters and drones. It was 10 times the force they'd faced before. Fleet-wide transmission, Hyunwoo ordered. All ships, all species. Listen carefully. Every human and Calantine vessel tuned in. Thousands of people waited for his words. 6 months ago, we came to this system as strangers. The Calantines needed help. We needed purpose. Both of us were dying in different ways. Today, we're no longer strangers. We've bled together. We've lost friends together. We've learned from each other. The Calantines have learned our desperate tactics. We've learned their discipline. Together, we've created something new, something neither of us could have made alone. He paused, gathering his thoughts. The Hive thinks they've adapted to us. They think they understand chaos. But they don't understand the most important thing about us. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for each other. Humans are fighting for Calantine worlds they've never seen. Calantines are using human tactics they once called barbaric, because we've become something bigger than our individual species. We've become a fleet, a family, and families don't surrender. On the Calantine flagship, High Commander Thexal listened to these words. 6 months ago, he would have called them sentimental nonsense. Now looking at his tactical officers who were using human improvisation alongside Calantine precision, he understood. All Calantine vessels, he transmitted. Today we fight using the Wastelander doctrine. Honor through victory. Survival through adaptation. Let the Hive come. We'll show them what happens when two species stop fighting alone. Observer Velthar, now commanding a battle group of mixed ships, felt something strange. Pride. Not just for the Calantines, but for the humans too. These strange, broken people from a dead world had taught them how to fight for their lives. The Hive fleet advanced. It moved with perfect coordination, every ship in exact position. They'd learned from the human chaos and had created counter-chaos, a flexible formation that could adapt to any tactic. They're good, Ji-won said, studying the formation from her fighter's cockpit. She'd survived every battle, though her fighter had been replaced 3 times. Really good. Then we need to be better, came Hyunwoo's voice. All fighters execute pattern Broken Wing. Ji-won grinned. Broken Wing was a tactic they'd developed 2 months ago. It looked like a disorganized retreat, but was actually a coordinated strike. The humans had taught it to Calantine pilots who'd refined it with their precision. 50 fighters launched, a mix of human and Calantine craft. They flew toward the Hive formation, then suddenly scattered. It looked like panic. The Hive pressed forward, sensing weakness, and that's when the fighters regrouped behind the Hive advance, hitting them from the rear. But the Hive had adapted. Their rear guard was stronger than expected. They'd predicted the tactic. 3 fighters were destroyed immediately. 5 more were damaged. Fall back, Ji-won ordered. They knew. They actually knew. The fighters retreated, but the Hive pursued, and that pursuit took them into range of the combined fleet's weapons. Calantine energy cannons opened fire alongside human kinetic weapons. The barrage was devastating, but the Hive shields held. Dae-hyun, Hyunwoo said calmly. Time for the new trick. Captain, we've only tested this once. It might not work. It'll work. Fire when ready. The broken arrow released a swarm of small objects. They looked like mines, but were actually something Dae-hyun had invented during a sleepless night. Hybrid devices combining Calantine shield technology with human electromagnetic pulses. The devices activated near the Hive ships. Their shields flickered, not failing but becoming visible, outlined in blue energy. Suddenly, the Hive shields had weak points that could be seen, targeted, exploited. All ships, Thexal commanded. Target the shield weak points. Fire at will. The combined fleet opened fire with precision. Weapons hit exactly where the shields were weakest. Hive vessels started taking real damage. Not much, but enough to matter. The Hive adapted again. They rotated their shields, closing weak points. But that rotation took time. Seconds of vulnerability. The fleet exploited every second. They're learning too fast, Veltar reported. We can't keep up with their adaptation rate. Then we change the game, Hyunwoo said. All ships execute desperate measures. Desperate measures was the most human tactic ever created. It involved every ship operating completely independently, with no coordination, no formation, no predictable pattern. Pure chaos, but it was chaos with purpose. Each captain knew the overall goal: damage the Hive flagship. Every ship worked toward that goal in their own way. Some drew fire, some provided cover. Some attacked directly. It looked like madness. It was madness. But it was effective madness. The Hive couldn't adapt because there was nothing to adapt to. Every ship fought differently. Just when the Hive adjusted to one tactic, that ship switched to something else. It was fighting 50 individual battles simultaneously, and the Hive's unified intelligence struggled to process it all. Push forward, Hyunwoo ordered. Everyone converge on the flagship. The Broken Arrow led the charge, its hybrid weapons firing, its patched armor absorbing damage, its crew working beyond exhaustion. Hana treated wounded at her station while simultaneously managing power distribution. Daehyun operated 3 systems at once, rerouting power as sections of the ship went offline. Ji-won and her squadron flew alongside capital ships, shooting down Hive fighters and missiles. She'd lost half her pilots over 6 months. Trained new ones lost them too. The faces changed, but the mission stayed the same. Protect the fleet. Keep fighting. The combined fleet reached the Hive flagship. It was massive, larger than anything they'd faced before. Its weapons fired constantly, destroying 2 Kalantine cruisers and 1 human destroyer. But the fleet pressed on. Belthar, Hyunwoo transmitted. Execute combined strike. Now. Belthar's battle group, a mix of human and Kalantine ships, had been waiting for this moment. They hit the flagship from multiple angles simultaneously. Human missiles carrying Kalantine warheads. Kalantine energy weapons fired in human-style rapid bursts. Technology and tactics from 2 species merged into something new. The flagship's shields buckled. Armor cracked. Internal explosions rippled across its hull. One more push, Thexal said. All remaining ships, everything you have, fire. Every weapon in the combined fleet fired at once. Energy and matter, primitive and advanced, desperate and precise. All of it hit the flagship in a concentrated barrage that lit up the entire system. The flagship's reactor breached. The explosion was catastrophic, destroying the vessel and damaging everything nearby. The Broken Arrow tumbled away, half its systems offline but intact. For a moment, everything stopped. The Hive fleet, suddenly without central coordination, went silent. Then slowly the remaining Hive vessels began to retreat. Not destroyed but damaged. Not beaten but uncertain. They're withdrawing, Veltar said in amazement. We did it. We actually did it. The combined fleet didn't celebrate. They were too tired, too damaged, too aware of how close they'd come to losing. But they'd won. Against impossible odds, they'd won. The aftermath took weeks to assess. The human fleet had lost 2 more ships. Only 7 remained from the original 12. 40% of their population was gone.